Radhe everyone from San Diego. Let's close our eyes in meditation and let's continue with a little bit Sankirtan after hearing the sweet Sankirtan from the Toronto devotees, the Sharma family. Srimad Sadguru Sarkar ki Jai. सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय. राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे. राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे. राधे राधे गोविंद राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे. 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 बोलिए लाडली लाल की जय. We are going to continue from where we left off last Saturday. So the question that was being asked is that our Vedas and Vedic scriptures, the Purans, all the Hindu scriptures have told us that God, that the world, the material world comes out of God, that God has created the world, that God is bliss himself, he is unlimited and everlasting and ever increasing happiness. Then how is it that, why is it that he has created this world full of sorrow and suffering? So the answer is being given, and I had started explaining the answer that Shri Maharaji has given, and I will continue. And just Shri Maharaji has said that, I'm just recapitulating, that, even your body is like that, that your body is conscious because of the presence of the soul, and then you have nails growing out of your body, your fingernails. Part of that nail is sentient, part of it is insentient, part of it you clip your nails and you don't feel any pain, but part of it is conscious. When you reach too far, that part of the nail really does hurt you. Your hair also, they are insentient. You cut them, you clip them, and you don't feel anything. So your body is also full of mutual contradictions. So it should not be a surprise that God, who is happiness himself, from him comes a world which is filled with so much sorrow. So I'll continue. Sayatha kamu bhavati tat kratur bhavati, etc. From Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So first, the desire comes. Then jnana janya bhaved ichcha hi ichcha janya bhaved kriti, kriti janya bhaved cheshta, cheshta janya kriyuchyate. How can an action be performed without a desire? But God, who is full of mutual contradictions, he performs so many works and such great works, and yet he has no desire. For instance, he creates the world. Srishti, creation takes place. Janmasthiti sanyaman, Bhagavad, Canto 10, Chapter 3, verse 19. The Bhagavad says that world emanated from God. And then you create the world, then you pervade the world, and then you rule the world, and then you live individually in every individual soul's heart, you live in every living being's heart, and you keep an account of the countless sins that every individual soul has committed. You give fruits of the actions to each and every living being. You energize each and every living creature's senses, mind, and intellect so that they may perform their respective functions. How many works you perform? Then you descend to earth, you take avatar, and then you assign someone that you will become my father, you'll become my wife, you'll become my child. You do so much. You do so much. You have 16,108 wives, Lord Krishna married 16,108 princesses. And from each and every wife, you got 10 children. Such a huge family you have. And then you get them all killed. They all fought within each other, and without any reason, they just killed one another. All this happened. You have such a huge family, and yet you have no desire. And Shri Maharaji is explaining right now the verse in the Bhagavad in which Vasudeva is praying to Shri Krishna. Vasudeva and Devaki are in the jail cell, and Shri Krishna has come as their child, but they wanted to see him as the Lord himself. So first he appears before them as Mahavishnu, and then Vasudeva and Devaki, they both pray to him. They praise him. And so Shri Maharaji is taking those words of Vasudeva, in which Vasudeva is saying, you are this, but you are also that. You're filled with mutual contradictions. So referring to that, Shri Maharaji explains, you are agunad, that you, my Lord, are beyond the three modes of Maya. Three modes are being Sattvagun, the mode of virtue and goodness, Rajogun, the mode of worldly passions and desires, and Tamogun, the mode of ignorance. You are beyond these three gun, these three modes. Seeing that you are beyond the three modes, how is it that your works indicate that you are within the three modes of Maya? When God comes to earth, he has children. So ye bachcha paida hota hai bina gun ke, you have children, and so you are beyond the three modes of Maya, and yet you have children. You show so much anger towards Bhishma, grandsire Bhishma. You take the chariot wheel and on the battlefield, and you had promised not to lift a single weapon, but you got so angry at Bhishma, thinking that Bhishma, as long as Bhishma is alive, the Pandavas cannot win the battle. So you rushed towards Bhishma with the wheel of a disabled chariot, with such anger. Your eyes were red with rage, and your brow was knitted. You were so angry. You were grinding your teeth. How is it that you were so angry? How is it that anger came to you, and that to God getting angry? That means you are. The works of anger are the works of the three modes of Maya. Bhagwan Ram killed so many demons. Shri Krishna killed so many demons, such as Aghasur, Bakasur, etc. Oh, I understand. What do you understand? Tvaishware Brahmani no viruddhyate. All this happens because you have contradictory energies within you. So you're able to do all these works. Nate bhavasyesha bhavasya karanam. Bhagavad 10:2-39. Canto, chapter, verse. You never take birth, and yet you take birth. And not one or two times, well, not once or twice, but you take uncountable births. Janma karma bhidhanani. Maharaji is quoting from the Bhagavad Puran. God himself is saying in the Bhagavad, I have taken birth countless times. Even I cannot tell you how many times I have taken birth, because there are countless times. But tell me something. We take birth because of our previous actions. We have performed countless actions of the past, and judging us by those actions, God gives us birth in one form or another. So our actions are responsible for us taking birth once again. But you don't perform actions. How is it that you're taking birth? Whether you perform virtuous actions or sinful actions, you will take birth. But if you are not committing any action, not performing any action, how are you taking birth? And yet this is happening. You are taking birth and you have no actions. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna. Gita 4:5, chapter, verse. Another contradiction. God is Kalatma. Only God is fearless. He makes even fear afraid. He makes death afraid. He's the death of death. Everyone else is under the control of death, yet he makes death afraid. Yet the same Shri Krishna became so afraid of Jarasandh that Jarasandh had given chase. He ran so far away that he crossed India. He went across India, and he went as far as the ocean. And there he built a residence for himself, a kingdom for himself, in an island, which is today called Dwarika. Today, Dwarika is under the ocean, by the way, in Gujarat. So Shri Krishna ran away, and in other places, Maharaji has said, with a lot of loving humor, that he ran so far away from Jarasandh, and he ran with such great speed that he didn't even bother looking back to see how far Jarasandh is. He just kept running. He was so afraid. And devotees gave him the title of Ranachor. They say, Hamare Sham Sundar Ranachor hai. In other words, he has shown his back to the battlefield. You're saying he's Ranachor, but this is insulting him. This is not a praise. These are not words of praise. No, but you see, this is all his Leela. This is all his pastimes. He makes even death afraid, and yet he becomes so fearful that he runs away from Jarasandh. Another contradiction is that he is Atmaram. That means he dwells in the self, and he does not need anyone or anything to make him happy. That is his reality. But at the same time, he loves so many gopis. He asks for their love, but he's Atmaram. So what we learn from this is that God has unlimited energies, and he can do anything he wants. Kartum akartum anyatha kartum samartha. Whatever he wants, he does. Whatever he wants not to do, he does not do. Whenever he wants to do contrary to nature, he does that. Then Shri Maharaji quotes from Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 32. Angani yasya sakalendriya sarva. God performs all the functions of all the senses with just one part of his body. What do you mean? Suppose, well, there's a nose, right? You have a nose. What is a function of the nose? It is to smell. Now tell me, can the nose perform the function of hearing or seeing? Not at all. The nose performs the function of only smelling. Ears perform the function of only hearing. The mind performs one action alone, and that is of thinking. But this is not so when we speak about God. With his nose, God can see, hear, smell, touch, taste, think, and take decisions. He can run, he can grasp objects, he can do everything with just one sense organ. And even if you say he has no sense organs, he can perform all the functions of every indriya, every sense organ, despite having no sense organ. Shweta Shvatra Upanishad, chapter 3, mantra 19 says, Apani pado javano grahita pashyatya chakshuh sashrunotya karnah savetti vedyam nachatasyasti vetta tamahuragram purukham mahantam. The Ramayana says in a much easier to understand language, Binu pag chalai sunai binu kana. Binu pag chalai sunai binu kana, kar binu karma karai vidhi nana, anan rahit sakal ras bhogi, binu jihva bhakta bad jogi, tan binu paras nayan binu dekha, grahai घ्राण बिनु वास असेखा, असी सब भांति अलौकिक करनी, महिमा जासु जाई नहीं बरनी. In the Ramayana, Tulsidas Ji says that everything about God is alaukik. It is not worldly, non-worldly. It is divine. And as such, we cannot understand anything about God using our intellect. Because we are not able to do what he does, so we can't understand how he can do it. He has no nose, yet he smells. He has no tongue, yet he speaks. That's what he does. So God is Sarva Karma, Sarva Samarth, Sarva Shaktiman. He can do anything. He is omnipotent. He has unlimited powers. He is able to do anything. Chandogya Upanishad, Maharaji is quoting from Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 3, section 14, verse 2. Manomaya prana shariro bharupah satya sankalpa akashatma sarva karma sarva kama sarva gandha sarva rasa sarva midam abhyato vakyanadaraha. This is what the Vedas are saying. What they're saying is that he is almighty and he is the abode of mutually contradictory powers. So is it surprising then that insentient world came out of him? He is supreme consciousness, but an insentient world came out of him, and he is happiness himself, unlimited happiness. But the world that came out of him is not blissful. It is full of sorrow and suffering. So it's not surprising. But if someone says, listen, the world, the scriptures say, Jagatcha Yaha, that this world is God himself. And where did Maharaji get that from? From the Bhagavad. And he quotes from the Bhagavad, 10, 9, 13, canto chapter verse. Na chantar na bahiryasya na purvam napi chaparam purva param bahishchantar jagato yo jagatcha yaha. So jagatcha yaha, that God is the world is God. One of the names of God is Vishwarup, he who is the world. So you see, there are so many contradictory names of God, such as Vishwakrit, he creates the world. Vishwavit, he pervades the world. He's in every particle of this world. Therefore, he knows the world. Vishwakrit, Vishwavit, and Vishwarup. In other words, he is the world. So as he was before, so he became afterwards. He did not create anything. In other words, if we say that the world is nothing but God himself, then the way God was earlier, the same God manifested himself. Let me explain this. Surya Chandramasau Dhata Yatha Purvamakalpayat Divancha Prithivim Chantariksha Matho Swaha. This is Narayana Upanishad, chapter 5, mantra number 7. Again, Bhagavad, Sasarjedam Sapurvavat. Again, Bhagavad, Prajah Srija Yatha Purvam Yascha Mayunushterate. In other words, the way the world was before the cosmic dissolution, Mahapralaya. When the cosmic dissolution takes place, then countless worlds merge within God. And when creation happens once again, then God reveals the world as it was earlier. Yatha Purvamakalpayat, says the Ved, that just as the world was earlier before it was destroyed, now it's time to create. So now God reveals the world as it was earlier. So this world was inside of God. And what does the world mean? The world is a mixture of three, combination of three. One is Bhagwan, God, one is Jeev, the individual soul, and one is Maya. These three are given the name of Bhagwan, or the world. Asman Mayi Srijate Vishwametat Tasminshchanyo Mayaya Sanniruddha. Shvetashvatra Upanishad, chapter 4, mantra 9. So what do you see in the world? You see something insentient, that is Maya, lifeless energy of God, Maya. And then you see something which is conscious, which has life, and that is we people. And then there is supreme consciousness, Mahachaitan, that is God, who is omnipresent. So the mixture of these three, Brahma, Jeev, Maya, that is called the world. When we see this world, we see the insentient world. But when the Gyanis, the ones who walk on the path of Gyan, the impersonalists, they meditate on God who has neither name nor form nor qualities, that is Brahman. So the Gyanis, when they look at the world, they experience their Brahman. When devotees who worship God with name and form, when they, as they live in the world, they see the world, they see their Bhagwan. They see God with name and form. They see Shri Krishna. They see Sri Ram. Same world is being perceived differently by these three. Uma je Ram charan rat vigat kam mad krodh nij prabhu maya dekhahi jagat kehi san karahi virod. Tulsi Krit Ramayana. The Gita also says, Vasudevah sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Chapter 7, verse 19. In other words, God is omnipresent. So the world is also like that. There's only one difference of one word. And Maharaji is saying, Dhyan do, pay attention. Pay attention, Shri Krishna, the Supreme Lord, he is Niravaran Brahman. Avaran means something that's covered, a covering, a veil, if you will. Niravaran meaning without a veil. And the world, Sansar, Savaran Brahma hai, Shri Krishna Niravaran Brahma hai. The world is Brahma who is covered. That's the only difference. Shri Krishna is Niravaran Brahma, the world is Savaran Brahma, with a covering, with a veil. So, whether you love Niravaran Brahma, that means Shri Krishna, whether you love him knowingly, knowing that he is God, or unknowingly, just thinking he's a handsome boy and I am so smitten by him, I love him. Whether you love him, knowing him to be God, or not knowing him to be God, unknowingly, you will attain him. You will attain God. Bhagavad Prapti Hogi. What about Savaran Brahma, the world? Without knowing him, you cannot attain God realization. When it comes to the world, without knowing God, you cannot attain God realization. Maharaji is saying, Jara buddhi lagao. Use your intellect here. In other words, Maharaji used to say, apne pura jod laga do. Use all your mental power, all your intellectual power to understand this. Okay. So is it that we attain God, if we love God, knowing him to be God, we attain God? The answer is yes. That's definitely true. But if you don't know him to be God, you love him just knowing him to be an ordinary person. Maybe you accept him as your father, or your son, or your husband. Even then you'll attain God. How? You see, whether, let's say someone has taken poison and he will die. Someone takes poison knowingly. Someone has given another person poison. That man died. Another person took poison himself with the intention to commit suicide. He also died. What does this mean? It means that poison will do its work. It will kill. Whether you're taking knowingly or unknowingly, it will kill you. Maharaji is giving another example of a woman who jumps into the funeral pyre when her husband dies. She jumps into the funeral pyre, and this was an unfortunate tradition in India at one time. When the husband dies, then the funeral pyre is lit, and she jumps in. The wife would jump in, and she would burn to death, and that's called sati pratha. She would become sati, and she would attain residence in Swargalok. That's illegal now, thank God. So whether a woman jumps into the fire to become sati, or someone pushes her into the fire, she will burn. In other words, the object it's like a fire will show it will give its, you will experience the power of fire. Fire will do its work, whether you jump into it knowingly or unknowingly, or accidentally. Your sentiment will not work over here. This is why the Bhagavad says, Kamam, Krodham, Bhayam, Sneham, Sneham, Aikyam, Sauhardamevacha, Nityam Harau Vidadhato, Yanti Tanmayatan Hite. Bhagavad 10, 29, 15, Canto, chapter verse. However you fall in love with God, it doesn't matter how you fall in love with God, it doesn't matter how you attach your mind to God, you will attain God realization. Kans attained God realization. Shishupal also attained God realization. Gopis also attained God. Kans and Shishupal loved him, or their minds were attached to Shri Krishna with feelings of hatred and fear. The Gopis had attached their minds to him with favorable feelings of love and adoration. But it doesn't matter how you attach your mind to God, you will attain God. But what about the world? Well, living in the world, if someone regards the world to be God, he will also attain God realization. Having godly sentiments in the world, yes, for instance, when you look at a murti, a deity, an image made of stone, it could be a murti made of stone or clay, or made of precious object like gold, or made of iron. There are 8 types of images, murtis, Bhagavad has told us. One of those murtis is the murti made with your mind, Manomai. Manomai, Manimai, Pratimashta Vidha Smrita. Bhagavad 11, 27, 12. So the murti is lifeless, isn't it? Yes, it's made of stone. Someone took a big piece of rock and then used the hammer, and shaped it into a face and then body. There's a nose, there's a mouth. But when the murti, you look at it and you accept that murti to be God, you will get godly benefit. Countless souls have attained God by creating devotional sentiments in a murti, or by creating the murti in the mind. That's what Maharaji says when he says Roop Dhyan Karo. When we do Roop Dhyan, what are we doing? We are creating a murti, an image of God, using our mind. And Veda Vyasji has said in the Bhagavad that out of the 8 types of murtis, one of them is Manomai, a murti or an image of God that you create with your mind, in your mind. So countless souls have attained God realization by creating devotional sentiments in a murti of God, or by creating a murti of God using their mind. And they have gone to God. The only one in danger is the one who lives in the world, sees the world, and has worldly sentiments towards the world. He is destroyed. And that's what we people are doing. We love people who are controlled by Maya. We love objects that are made of Maya. We live in the world and we love the world, not thinking it to be God, but thinking it to be the world itself. Now, let's say you create a murti made of stone, an image of your father or your mother or your son. All right, done. Then let's say you accept your father or your mother or as your child. Now, then you accept that murti to be your father or your mother or your child. All right, done. What will you get by doing this? 0. Nothing. Why? Why do I get the benefit of God when I create the feelings of God by looking at an image of God, but I don't get the benefit of God when I look at a murti made of a worldly person, my loved one? Why don't I get that same benefit? Maharaji is explaining there are 2 reasons. You get godly benefit from the stone deity, a stone idol, because first of all, because God is omnipresent. Bhagwan Sarva Vyapak hai. He is also in that stone. Your father is not present in that stone murti. Your father is not omnipresent, so he's not present within the murti. Your father's living in England. He's not in the murti. Reason number 2, God is all-knowing, सर्वज्ञ. भगवान सर्वज्ञ है, वो आपके हृदय की भावना को जानता है, इसलिए वो भगवान का फल दे देता है. Because God is omniscient, he's all-knowing, he knows the feelings of your heart, so he gives you his benefit. He gives you godly benefit. But as for your father, you have created an image of your father, murti of your father. How does your father know he's living in England, you're living in some other country in the US, and you were crying and crying for him, and you even died because you cried so much for him, and he has no idea. You may even die and you're cremated, your father has no idea until he gets a message that you have passed on. So, the one who regards the world and keeps the worldly feelings towards the world is obligated to come back to the world and wander in 8.4 million life forms. But the other 3 attain God realization. The other 3 meaning the one who sees a murti of God and he has devotional feelings, he will attain God. And another is the one who looks at God and accepts him to be God. He will get God realization. The third one is the one who looks at God and accepts him to be a worldly man or woman. He will also attain God. But the 4th one, the one who is living in the world and he doesn't see God in the world, he just sees Maya everywhere. He's the one who will have to come back to this world again and again. So now during the avatar, when God descends to earth, when he takes avatar, because the word avatar is avataranam avatara. Our scriptures tell us that to take avatar simply means to come down. So when God comes down to earth, we say he has taken avatar. But you can say you have taken avatar simply when you are, let's say you're at the top of the staircase, when you come down, you can actually say I've taken avatar. Because to take avatar simply means to come down. So God comes down to earth, he takes avatar. When he comes here, what two things happen? One is that many people love him. They know him to be God and they love him as such. Mahapurush, they do that. The saints, they love him, knowing him to be God. And then there are others who unknowingly love him. They don't know he's God, but they accept him to be the loved one, maybe father or son or husband even, beloved. And then they fall in love with him. That's it. They will attain God. Now, what if God is not present on earth right now? He has not taken up that. Then we create devotional feelings in something which is insentient, like the stone murti. And we attain God realization. Or we, even without that murti, we create an image of him. We meditate on him using our mind, which is also insentient, jad, and we attain God. When Shukdev Paramhans told Parikshit that Bhagwan Shri Krishna had entered the mouth of Aghasur, then Parikshit immediately had a doubt. When he heard that Aghasur, that Shri Krishna ended up killing Aghasur and Aghasur attained God realization, then immediately King Parikshit had a question. The question was this, that he was such a sinner, Aghasur was such a sinner, he had put all the cowherd boys, all the Gwalbal into his mouth. He wanted to kill them, he wanted to eat them up. Then Shri Krishna thought, what is he doing? He's going to eat all my friends? No, I will not let this happen. So Shri Krishna also entered the mouth of Aghasur. Aghasur thought, that's good that you've also come. Today I'll destroy the whole family. I wanted you to come. I wanted the leader of all these cowherd boys to come. And now you have come. It's a good thing. And Bhagwan Shri Krishna thought, all right, son, I'll teach you a lesson. Bhagwan ne kaha, acha bachchu, main batata hu abhi. So what did Lord Krishna do? He kept expanding his body. And he expanded it so much that Aghasur's mouth burst open and he died. After dying, he merged within Shri Krishna. So Parikshit thought, how? How is this possible? This Aghasur should have been sent to hell. Shukdev Paramhans said, Sakrid yadanga pratimanta rahita manumayi bhagavatim dadau gatim. Bhagavad 10, 12, 39. Shukdev Paramhans said, Are gadhe, you fool. The fact is that you can attain God realization by worshiping God, by creating an image of God in the mind. You can attain God, and countless souls have done so already. And here, God himself went into the mouth of Aghasur, and you're saying that he should not attain God realization? When you can even create an image of God in the mind and think of him, and yet Bhagwan himself went into the mouth of Aghasur, and you're having a doubt that, oh, he should have gone to hell after death, after he died. No. So the one who has worldly feelings towards the world will not attain God. He will only attain the world. And this is why Shri Krishna tells Arjun in the Gita, Tasmat 8:7 chapter verse. Arjun, think of me at all times, so that in your final moment you may think of me. If you think of me in your final moments, you will come to my abode. Mad bhakta yanti mamapi. Etavan Sankhya Punsa Mande Narayana Siddhi. Bhagavad 2:1-6. Meaning, whether you are following the path of karma, dharma, gyan, yoga, doesn't matter which path you're following, but you must always think of God continuously. And in your last moment, you will be able to think of God. Then you'll attain God. This is why Tarka Pratishtanat, Brahma Sutra says, do not take your material intellect to understand anything about God. Your material intellect has many doubts. It has many doubts, but you cannot take your logic and try to understand God. The laws of India are not applicable in England. Then how is it possible that your material logic will work in the area of God? Do not take your intellect in the area of God, because God is beyond the material intellect. Ye bhavarth hai. This is the meaning, the answer to the full answer to the question. So Shri Maharaji has given a lengthy answer, very detailed answer to the question, why is there so much sorrow and suffering in the world, when the fact is that world has come out of God, then it should be just like God. And Maharaji has explained why this is so, why this does not happen, why the opposite happens. I don't think I'll start the next question today, because there's not much time left. And at this point, I would like to know if you have any questions about this topic that we are talking about. We have just a few minutes before I do the guided meditation. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Radhe Radhe Didi, I have a question regarding this. So I heard in the lecture in the morning that so you said that we can love, if we get attached and love Shri Krishna, then we will knowingly, unknowingly will get him after that. So for the Gyanis, they even do bhakti at one point, and then I heard something that they worship Shri Krishna. Some Gyanis worship Shri Krishna as a Niravaran Brahma, and some is Sattvic Brahma. So what is this Sattvic Brahma? Because who worship him as a Sattvic Brahma did not get what they actually want. That is what something like that I heard.
I am not aware of that, actually. I have not heard that. Not that you could not hear it, but I will need to know the source. Hiral, right? Is Hiral talking?
Yeah. I will send a link to you.
Please send it to me, Hiral, and I will try to give you the answer. Sure.
Okay, and one more question. So these Gyanis, they like worship Shri Krishna as like a loving way? Which way actually they love Shri Krishna?
What happens is that when the Gyani walking on the path of, going towards Brahma, using the path of Gyan, knowledge, in which there is no God without, there's only Brahma, they're meditating on Brahma. So they get to a point where their path can't take them any further, and they attain Atma Gyan, right? They attain knowledge of the self, but they don't attain Brahma Gyan. For that, you have to surrender to Shri Krishna. So they would they would love him they would do bhakti to him. I would suspect not in Madhurya Bhav, because that's a very high sentiment. They would not go there. But and then they may decide, oh look, I want bhakti, I don't want Gyan Marg. But their sanskars in Gyan Marg may be so strong that they will say, okay, I'm loving you, Shri Krishna, but I still want to merge in your Brahma aspect. So in answer to your question, I don't think they would love Shri Krishna as a beloved, because then they can never ask for, ask for that liberation in which they merge within him, within Brahma. But Maharaji has never really said with which sentiment they would love him in. but I would say that they would do kind of basic devotion and let me get on with your Brahma aspect. Let me just merge within you, because many of them, their sanskars in Gyan Marg are so strong that they will just decide to just stay with the Brahma aspect. But some of them will come out of that and they say, no, I want to love God with name and form. But it depends on their sanskars of the past.
Because what was in my mind that once you start, bhakti means love. And if Gyanis how to do bhakti means love to Shri Krishna. So once they started loving Shri Krishna, then they started getting bliss, like higher bliss. Then how come they merge? Then their desire will get changed that, okay, no, I was wrong. I get higher bliss. So I want you rather than merging.
Yes, that would be very, that would be the, you would think that would be the thing to do. But some of them, like I said, because their sanskars are so much with God without name and form, that they will still want to merge within Brahma. Now the choice is theirs at that point. The choice will be theirs. So whatever they decide on, God will give them that.
Oh, thank you, Didi. Radhe.
Radhe, Radhe. Anyone else? So if there are no more questions, we will go into the guided meditation. Music, please. Create your subtle body, bhav deh, sharir. With your subtle body, you leave this physical body and you go beyond this world. You are rising higher and higher and higher. With your bhav deh, with your subtle body, you have reached a river called Birja. This river separates the material world and the divine world. But now visualize yourself going beyond Birja River. You have crossed the Birja River, and now the divine abode of God starts. There are many abodes in the divine world, and you keep on rising higher and higher and higher until you can go no higher, and you have reached divine Vrindavan, Golok. In Golok, the 5 elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, they are not material. Krishna has become these 5 elements. Golok is illumined not by the sun or the moon, but by the effulgence of Shri Krishna Bhagwan. In Golok, all is Krishna, and Krishna is all. You have reached Golok with your subtle body, and you are experiencing the divine touch of Shri Krishna through the breeze, through the earth, through the space that surrounds you, through the water. The 5 elements give you the experience of Shri Krishna. And now Shri Krishna appears right in front of you. You are offering flowers at his lotus feet. You are washing his lotus feet with your tears. You are drying those lotus feet of Shri Krishna with a towel. You are now being embraced by Shri Krishna. You are now offering a banamala, a garland of 5 flowers. You're placing it around his neck. Tulsi, Kund, Mandar, Parijat, and Lotus are the 5 flowers with which this mala has been made. You have put this banamala around your beloved Lord's neck. The fragrance of the garland is very sweet, but the fragrance of Sri Krishna's body is infinitely sweeter. This fragrance surrounds you, it intoxicates you, it makes you forget everything. All you know is Krishna, 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 Krishna. All you are uttering is Krishna, 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 Krishna. All you're hearing from birds and beasts around you is Krishna, 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 Krishna. The fragrant and gentle breeze is saying to you, whispering in your ears, Krishna, 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 Krishna. Each and every breath of yours is saying, Krishna, 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 Krishna. Your entire being is pervaded by Shri Krishna. Your mind knows only Krishna. Your intellect thinks only about Krishna. Your eyes see only Krishna. Your ears hear only Krishna. You're inhaling the fragrance only of Shri Krishna. You are touching only Shri Krishna. Everything is Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna is everything.
Didi Ji, I think your phone got muted.
Ladali Lal ki jai. Srimad Sadguru Sarkar ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhey. Jai Jai Shri Radhey. Jai Jai Shri Radhey. Did it get muted for a long time or just then?
No, last a minute or so.
So all I said at the end was, I'm sorry, it just happened by itself. All I said was that Radha and Krishna have merged within each other, and then you leave Golok with your subtle body, and you come gradually back into your physical body with a heart filled with love for Lord Radhe. Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Radhe Radhe Didi Ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Didi Ji.
Radhe Radhe Didi Ji.
Good to see everybody here. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Didi.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Didi. Radhe Radhe.